Hi everyone. Well, today I thought I would give you the story of Billy, and especially for those who've been commenting and wanting to know more about him and his how he ended up with us. And so while I'm outside doing jobs, I stop for a few minutes and I discuss Billy's journey with us from the time we got him to where he is now. So if you like our channel, please hit the like button, subscribe, and by all means, please comment. Morning everyone. Well, it's Roz here from Brumby Horse Life, and it's another morning. This morning we've got lots of cloud cover, so I'm hoping that it will rain today. Everywhere I look there's cloud, but at the moment it's too high, so unless the cloud drops down further over the mountain range, I don't know how much will actually get us. But they're saying rain over the next few days, and I think Saturday, which is tomorrow, is going to be the rain bomb. So fingers crossed that we get rain. Pictures I took over a period of 5 years. I wish I'd taken more when Billy was at his weakest. I still look back and I cannot believe how he changed and changed and changed, and went from being shut down to Mr. Personality. So I've put up in the first part of this video Billy from the early days. I've had some different comments over how much he's changed and how handsome he is now, and so I've taken some of the very old videos of back when we first got him and just put a few pictures in between so people can have a little bit of an idea of the changes that Bill has gone through over the years and how much he's grown. So he's now probably about 15 hands, just over 15 hands. Bella is 16 so she no longer dwarfs Bill, and like I've said in other videos, I didn't think he was ever going to grow that big because he was small, and when I say small, he was probably just touching 14 hands when we first got him, and he was just all bone because he was so starved. His neck was like a giraffe, and as you can see this day he's got a bit of a meaty neck there, and I'm going to have to cut him back a little bit, but with the winter and the cold weather coming in, he'll drop that weight anyway. And so he's come a long way. We've had him 5 years now, and he's come a long way in those 5 years. He's now about 7 years of age and reached his maturity. you know, so he's done a lot of growth, a lot of development and emotional development as well, because for those of you who don't know, he was born in the wild. He was captured young and was meant to go to the slaughter yards because he had a severe head injury, and so he was separated from his herd in the auction yards, and he came in with his herd during the drought times around 2019, and was taken out of the Victorian Alps. We don't know exactly where, but I've done as much research as I can to find out exactly what really happened with him. What I do know is that because he had a fairly big head injury, he was separated in the auction yards, and he was taken away from his herd. He was sold as an older horse. I don't know if the previous owner ever bothered to check his teeth or anything like that, because when we got him, and let's put it this way, he nearly did not survive a 2-hour journey, let alone a 3 to 4 hour journey to our place in Victoria. Our transporter, when he first picked him up, and we couldn't pick him up ourselves because of COVID and the restrictions of going into Melbourne. Anyway, when our transporter saw him, he rang me up and he said to me, "Roz, do you know what you're getting?" And I said, "What do you mean, do I know what I'm getting?" And I said, I purchased him online. And so be aware, people, when you're buying online. But anyway, it didn't matter to me. I picked Bill not because of anything other than I wanted a companion, and there was something about Bill's sad little eyes that got my heart. Anyway, when my transporter got to the adjustment facilities where Bill was being kept, Bill was so close to death, so close to just not even being able to stand up on his feet. My transporter was shocked, and he said to me, "Roz, I don't want to be too cynical, but I don't think he's going to make it to your place." He said, "I don't think he's going to live much longer." He said, "Let me take him home to my racing stables, and I will get a vet out, and we will try and hydrate him and get some food into him if we can." He said, "No guarantees." He said that the horse is absolutely starved, and he said, "I don't know how sick he is." So that was Bill's very beginning, and fortunately, our transporter, as I said, who owned a racing stable and really good with horses, he was on the ball, and he spent 48 hours nursing Bill, trying to get him to live, and he succeeded. And then it was my job. So when he brought Bill to us again, Bill was in such a desperate state. I didn't know whether we were going to save him, but I was going to do my very best. And so Bill really suffered. He was so little. When you look at his knuckle joints now, everything's in proportion. But when we first got him, his front knuckles were massive, and you could see the bone structure on his legs. His neck was like a giraffe's. You could see every rib on his frame. You could see his skeleton, his backbone. When you looked at him from behind, there was no muscle tone there at all. He'd just virtually wasted away, and he was frightened. So he used to hide in the stable, and I'll walk around. Sorry people, it's messy here at the moment, but I haven't done a lot of work because of the weather and cleaning out, and the horses like to poo out the back here. But anyway, he used to hide before I had this door opened. He used to hide in this corner here when there was no opening here. Angle. And he'd hide there, and he'd put his head down into the corner, and he would pretend that the whole world didn't exist. He was just terrified of everything and shut down. And it was shocking. I'd never seen a horse behave that way and be so absolutely frightened of everything. I dealt with brumbies in the past, but I hadn't seen a shut down starved brumby like Bill was. Anyway, that was the very early journey of Bill's life, and when you look at Bella's size compared to him, he just looked like a foal. He was about the size of a foal, and when we did a tooth check, we could see that he still had all his baby teeth in, and so we realised that he was not 4 years of age, he was barely 2, and that when he'd first been removed from his herd, nobody had done a teeth check, I suppose, because they weren't expecting him to go on. He was meant to go to the knackery. And so that was the early stages. Those first few months were really touch and go with Bill, because if you've ever had to deal with a rescue and a starved horse, you can't feed them much all at once because it'll overwhelm their stomach, and they will colic, and that can kill them. The other issue that Bill had was he had massive ulcers because he had spent nearly 12 months in an adjustment facility slowly starving to death because the person who supposedly rescued him from the auction had no money and the adjustment fees were too much for her. And so the whole idea of having a project horse and a little project baby brumby was all wonderful, but in the end it was too much for her, so she told lots of fibs on the online auction to try and pay her way out of it, I suppose. And I don't regret buying Bill, but I certainly paid $1,000 for a near dead starving little brumby, and I don't regret that. But I at that point had made up my mind that irregardless I was going to keep him and try and get him to live, because that's just me. I can't stand to see animals suffer. The hardest thing, I suppose, back then was I had become legally blind, so I have genetic diseases that impact on my eyesight, and what had happened is that I had developed cataracts, so my vision started to go rapidly, and it got to a stage where I could barely see. All I could see was outlines, shapes. I couldn't no longer see the ground. I didn't have any contrast. So life became very difficult with looking after an abused, starved brumby and a big, powerful, unruly quarter horse mare. But I managed. What I did with Bill was gave him lots of little small feeds every 2 hours. I could come out at night because because I couldn't see, it didn't matter to me in the end whether it was day or night. I still was able to come out, feed him, and started to build that relationship up. I never asked anything of him. I just came out, fed him, and took care of the horses, and I sat with them because I really couldn't do anything much at that stage. Because I was overwhelmed by my own shortcomings and physical failures. And so I used to just sit there and look at them as best as I could, or just sit there and talk to them. I still talk to the horses a lot, as you know, and slowly that relationship built, and Bill began to trust me, and we established a bond. One of the most amazing things about Bill was that when I was blind, I'd be trying to walk around this stable area, and as you can see, it's, the ground's not level, there's hay everywhere, and I'd be trying to clean up and do things. Even though I couldn't see, I still tried to go through, the routine. And I used to trip over behind the stable because there was all kinds of things there. And anyway, this one day I was on the ground, and Billy came over to see me, and I pushed his head away because I was angry and frustrated with myself, and I was having a bit of a sook because I was tired of falling over, tired of being in this position of not being able to see, trying to fix up Bill and look after Bella. I just, I was really struggling. Anyway, I was down on the ground up beside the stable there. Bill came over, put his head down and started to sniff me and check out my face. And I pushed his face away and said, go away, because, I just didn't want to know. But he wouldn't take that. He wouldn't take my no for an answer. And so he kept checking me over, checking my face and looking down at where I was, trying to figure out what I was doing. And I realised that he wasn't going to leave. He was not going to move away from me while I was down on the ground. So eventually I managed to, the other thing I had a big problem with was muscle wastage. So my coordination to get myself up and down was really hard. So anyway, I used him, got up, put my arm on his neck, and he guided me back round to the front of the stable. So from that moment on, Bill became my constant companion. If you look at even the videos today, you'll see that he's always planted on my shoulder. He decided, not because I asked him to, but because he wanted to, was to guide me around and watch over me. So that was really how our training even began, because Bill decided wherever I was going to go, he was going to go and make sure that I didn't have any accidents, or if I did, I could use his shoulder to pull myself back up on. So for those of you who think brumbies aren't worthwhile horses, and you're really wrong. They've got remarkable personalities, remarkable intelligence, and ability to analyse and think out things. You tell me a domestic horse that would have done what Bill did for me. And anyway, he encouraged me. So eventually I actually backed him 3/4 blind, and because he was just so patient with me. I fell off every time I tried to get off because I couldn't find the ground. Also, my knees wouldn't hold me. And so every time I got off him, he got used to me rolling around beside his feet. Again, what other horse would put up with that from the wild? So Bill is a special horse, no matter what. He's been through a tremendous amount of trauma. Probably the downside is in the early days he had a distinct dislike for men. It took Kelly quite some time to befriend Bill, and as you can see, they've got a lovely relationship now. But back in the day, Bill would not accept Kelly or any man, because when he was, and I found these things out later, but when the person who did buy him put him into adjustment, they thought it was funny to jump on his back. Now, if you can imagine that you could see every bone on Billy's back, his spine, and having a big man jump on your back. Also, I suppose because he was a brumby, they rough-handled him, and he'd already been rough-handled and traumatised by his capture, and in transport, who knows how he got that head injury, whether it was from another horse or being squashed in with his herd, or whether he was hit over the head. I don't know, but whatever it was, deeply traumatised Bill. And so for quite some time he did not like men, and could, during his growing up years, could be quite surly and would become aggressive. He would strike, he would rear up, he would bite. But nowadays you don't see any of that behaviour at all. It's long gone. So, there were little things that I had to deal with, especially once I got my eyesight back and I could see what he was up to. He got away with a lot, I suppose, when I couldn't see, because I had to rely on him versus him having to rely on me. Over the first year, Bill grew so much it shocked us. I never imagined he was going to get as big as he did. I never imagined he was going to fill out in the way that he did. I didn't realise he was going to get as territorial as he did over the property. So there was a lot of firsts that I had to learn with Bill, and things that I, because I'd had domestic horses for so long and I hadn't had anything to do with brumbies since my teenage years, I'd forgotten how different wild horses, even when they're domesticated later on, can be still compared to domestic born horses. And at some point I didn't know whether Bill had a retained testicle because he showed a lot of stud type behaviours. But, that was all part of the par. Things that Bill would do would be to patrol the fence line, look for weaknesses. Took him about 2 years to get over that. He got tangled in the fences many times. Sometimes he jumped out or pushed his way through. Even with the electric fencing, he would still push through. And so it took some time. He was obsessed with escaping and to get back to the wild. And a couple of times that he did get out, he would get so far, turn around and come back because of Bella. So I was fortunate in the sense that he wasn't on his own and that he had a deep bond by that stage with Bella, and decided that, the wild was good, but, his girlfriend was here. And so I would just call him home and he would come back. Fortunately, there's paddocks all around us. And so I didn't have to chase him too far. I might have had to cover a few thousand acres, but that was probably it. And another time he did get out with Bella. The front gate was left open and I can't remember how they got out, but they took off and they went bush. And anyway, I went down just with a bucket of oats and a halter, and I called Bill in the bush. I just stood there and he came over because he's greedy and loves oats. It was one of his favourite foods in life, and I was able to slip the halter onto him and walk him home. It was going to be a harder task with Madam because she'd never been out like that in the wild, and she was just absolutely excited and snorty and running around and carrying on, being an absolute princess. Because the wild was normal for Bill, he was completely calm. He was happy that he'd been out and about, ready to come home. And so I just whacked the halter onto him and he and I walked home while Bella followed and pranced around and did her thing. And at one stage she got herself trapped into the old school grounds and we had to walk back to show her where the entrance was. But he was cool, calm and collected. And so I realised that there were, he thought about where he was, and he wasn't a mindless brumby that was just, wanting to get back into the world. He was a thinker, and he was confident, and, he'd gone from being that scared, tiny little rescue in the stable to this calm, confident horse that, knew where he was, wasn't frightened of anything much, and would stop and analyse things. So he's done a huge amount of not just physical growth but emotional growth. Some of the health issues that I've had with Bill is, like I said in the beginning, he was full of ulcers, and so I had to treat him for ulcers for quite some time. That was a bit of a problem. And I had to balance how much weight that I put on him, not overdo it, but still make sure that, he was getting a good supply of everything he absolutely needed to get that bone growth and muscle development. And as you can see, he's a pretty chunky guy now. Some of the naughty behaviours we discovered in Bill was his love for chasing things. He's right into herding, and also he's a bit nippy. So we discovered that for whatever reason, he doesn't mind Rambo, our pet sheep, but Robin is another matter. And he has chased Robin around this paddock numerous times. He's chased him around that tree like a barrel racer. You can see that lowest branch there. Well, Bill went down under that branch, nearly on his side, chasing poor old Robin one day, until I managed to intervene and save Robin. Robin obviously shows fear, and for whatever reason, Bill decided that he was going to teach Robin a hard lesson. And poor old Robin these days still hides away from Bill, even though Bill can't get into the sheep pen. he knows that Bill's a threat. That's a bit of the story of Bill's life. I hope you enjoyed. If you've got any questions, please put it in the comments, and I can fill in some more gaps for you. But you know, if you're considering a brumby, do so. I see them online at the moment. I see a couple online at the auctions, and they're looking sad and not in their best condition. I know it's drought time, so I know a lot of people struggling to maintain their horses. Horses are a big commitment, so don't go out and buy one just because you think I'd love a brumby. Or I've read the Silver Brumbies series, or I've watched The Man from the Snowy River. That's not a good enough reason to buy a horse and to buy a brumby. But if you're genuine but you're just not sure of your own abilities, there's rehomers, there's horse trainers that deal with brumbies only, and there's some really good quality people out there that can lead the way and show you. And they're a terrific horse. They're most of them, once they become domesticated, make excellent riding horses for kids as well, because they are safer in the sense that they're not worried about going out on the trails, because they've lived in the wild. They know what a kangaroo is, they know what tree branches are, they've lived in extreme conditions, particularly if they've come from the Alps. Generally they tend to have a steadier character. Finish up at this point. I hope that I've given people a little bit of useful information. If you like our channel, please subscribe and hit the like button, and comment if you can, because that also helps, and I'm always happy to respond back to comments. Thanks everybody.